In this video, I want to talk about Anakin and why he didn't tell Luke about Exegol. Now, if you're someone who is not familiar with the expanded lore of Star Wars, this may be something that doesn't make much sense to you, so let me explain. Recently, there has been an ongoing Darth Vader comic series, simply titled Star Wars Darth Vader 2020. Now, this comic is canon, which means the events that take place during the story are a part of the official Star Wars continuity. So in this comic series, there's a whole arc about how Vader actually went to Exegol. That's right, Vader, before he passed away in Return of the Jedi, actually went to Exegol. This took place shortly after the events of The Empire Strikes Back. Vader took one of the Wayfinders that we saw in the Rise of Skywalker and went to Exegol. While he was on Exegol, we actually saw the construction of the Sith fleet. So this confirms that Palpatine had been working on this before the sequel trilogy and before his death in Return of the Jedi. Now, as much as I love connections to the sequel trilogy, this does bring up a lot of questions. The first question that I want to just dispel really quickly is, why did Palpatine make a second Death Star if he was working on the Sith fleet? For one, the Sith fleet wouldn't be ready for another 31 years, so there's that. Also, the second Death Star was used as a plot to lure the rebellion so we can defeat them all at once, which obviously failed. This brings us to the topic of this video. Why didn't Anakin tell Luke about Exegol? As we know, Darth Vader, once redeemed, was able to become a Force ghost, as we saw in Return of the Jedi. It is also confirmed through many canon sources that Luke Skywalker did communicate with his father after Return of the Jedi through the Force. This passage from the reference guide Secrets of the Jedi confirms this. When talking about Force ghosts, Luke says that knowledge was then passed down to a select few, including Obi-Wan, Yoda, and my father. Their spirits guided me for many years, but vanished when I cut myself off from the Force. It is a relief to feel their presence again after all this time. So we know that Luke spoke to Anakin. If they did communicate, why didn't Anakin tell Luke about Exegol? Vader was clearly aware that Palpatine had a secret Sith fleet. That is something that seems very important and would probably be useful for Luke to know. I think when talking about Anakin as a Force ghost, this is a fair question, but I've heard some people bring up, why didn't Vader tell Luke just before he died on the second Death Star? The way I look at this scene is that there are only two things on Vader's mind right now: Luke and Padme. In the last moments of his life, I'm sure all Vader wants to do is be grateful for his son and to reflect on his mistakes with Padme. The last thing Vader is going to want to do at this moment is tell Luke about a secret plot that is happening on the other side of the galaxy. So now we can talk about Force ghosts. Why wouldn't Anakin tell Luke about Exegol? For one, maybe Anakin did tell Luke about Exegol. In the Rise of Skywalker, we do learn that Luke and Lando went on a search for the Wayfinders so they could go to Exegol. Maybe Anakin told Luke about it, but didn't know where the Wayfinders were. Granted, one was in Vader's castle, so it would be kind of strange that Anakin wouldn't know that. But I think there are a lot of questions that come along with Force ghosts. Why didn't Obi-Wan assist Luke during his fights with Darth Vader like he did with Luke on the Death Star? Why can't Yoda help fight if he struck down a tree with lightning in The Last Jedi? To understand all this, I want to talk about the originals before I move on to the sequels. When it comes to physically being able to touch or impact the physical world, one could argue that Force ghosts just don't know how to do that yet. Qui-Gon was dead for 12 years before he knew how to manifest his voice to Yoda in the Clone Wars. So maybe there's some aspect of being a Force ghost that takes time and training. Even in A New Hope, Obi-Wan couldn't physically appear either. The first time we saw a physical Force ghost was Obi-Wan on Hoth. So maybe Force ghosts for a time could physically appear, but couldn't interact with the world. With The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, the Force ghosts now have the ability to interact with the physical world. This to me just seemed like a natural progression of the abilities that a Force ghost can have. Over those 30 years, maybe the ghosts learned more about the Force to where they could finally learn how to interact with the physical world. When Obi-Wan said he could become more powerful than Vader could possibly imagine, he had to have known the power of Force ghosts. But with this newfound power brings up the big question: why didn't Yoda or Luke help fight in the sequel trilogy, and why didn't Anakin tell Luke about Exegol? Could Yoda have just struck down Snoke in The Last Jedi? Maybe, but I feel those who ask this question question really miss the point of what the light side of the Force is, and more importantly, what being a Force ghost represents. Being a Jedi is all about love, compassion, and most importantly, peace. If you look at the deaths of the Jedi we see become Force ghosts, their last moments of life are always in peace. This is excluding the voices we hear in the Rise of Skywalker. I think the best examples of this are with Leia and Ben in the Rise of Skywalker. When Leia dies, she doesn't automatically disappear. This is because she has not made peace yet. However, when Ben dies as an agent of the light side, she's able to die in peace as well. So given that being a Force ghost means you must be at peace, going back and fighting in a war is definitely not peaceful. Now, many of you may think this is a cop-out for me to say, but I don't want all the answers to the Force. Star Wars is what we call soft fantasy, as opposed to hard fantasy. The rules in soft fantasy are usually less strict, whereas in hard fantasy, there are a strong set of rules for how everything works. One thing that made the Force so great in the originals is how it was so mysterious. Once George Lucas decided to explain more of the Force, he created midichlorians, which I think ruined a big part of the Force. So when it comes to Force ghosts, I don't really want a hard set of rules that explains how they work. From a narrative perspective, Force ghosts only serve the role of guiding those in need of help. When Luke caught that lightsaber, he did it so he could help motivate Rey in her fight against Palpatine. Whenever Luke spoke to Anakin, it was likely because Luke needed advice and Anakin was able to help. People like to forget that Star Wars is a fairy tale, not the real world. Serving as a spirit passing on advice is extremely important in mythology. Mythology isn't always supposed to make sense, but it is supposed to pass on life lessons and themes, which Star Wars does. Force ghosts are not meant to fight. They're supposed to guide others in their fight. If Obi-Wan just defeated Vader and the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, then Luke would have never faced his greatest challenge. As Luke said in The Rise of Skywalker, 1,000 generations live in you now, but this is your fight. That was Rey's time to face her demons, not Luke's or Leia's. Star Wars is about different generations of people facing evil, not ghosts facing evil. So why didn't Anakin tell Luke about Exegol? There could be a bunch of different answers. Now, conceptually, I don't like the idea of Vader going to Exegol. I think it brings up unnecessary questions like this one, but I hope my take makes sense to those who want to learn more about Force ghosts. And that is why Anakin didn't tell Luke about Exegol. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Don't forget to unite the Claws Squad, and I will see you guys next time.